Welcome to Sparking Success with Aaron Opalewski. Aaron brings you conversations that spark innovation, cultivate leadership skills, and pave the way for your business success. In each episode, we delve into the dynamic world of business and leadership, exploring strategies, insights, and success stories that fuel your professional journey. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Sparking Success with Aaron Opalewski. My name's EJ Swanson. I'm your host, and I feel so privileged to be here with one of my good friends, Aaron. Aaron, how are you today, man?
Doing great. We just talked for like 10 minutes before we were like, all right, we're supposed to be on a timeline.
We got other priorities. We need to do this. Today on Sparking Success, we're going to talk about something that I think every leader not only needs to be aware of, but they also at times struggle with. And within any growing organization, performance is key. All of us are driven to perform. And today we're going to talk about performance management. And over the years, building and leading successful companies, it's one of the things that you've had to not only refine, as you've told me, but also have really done a great job with our team, helping them to perform at their top standard and helping them work through that. So as we kick things off today, will you share a little bit about performance management, what you feel the necessity of it is in any organization and how it's helped you as a leader?
Yeah, well, if it's okay, I'll just walk through not a visual, but like a quick overview.
I'd love that.
Of like the process that we would recommend. And we don't just recommend it to clients. We do, but we don't just recommend it to clients. This is what we do.
Right.
And it'll be one thing to walk you through it. It's another thing. We'll probably talk more about the execution of it.
Right.
And then some of the roadblocks that come up.
Which is key. You can have a great plan in place.
We got to execute.
But you got to not only execute, but how you execute is key in this as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it can make or break relationships. It can make or break what we here call igniters. The goals for that performance. So let's get right into it. Talk us through that.
So, I mean, there's really like a 3-step or 3 phases to this. So, like, let's say that you have an issue, that you need to correct. And we're looking at it from like more of like the issue, like performance management, the issues that you got to correct today.
Okay.
So we'll start out with a friendly conversation.
Yep.
Moving from a friendly conversation, you're going to move into a serious discussion.
Mm-hmm.
The serious discussion is something that we would recommend to a client or ourselves. Like, we'll document it. It's not this huge formal thing, but we're going to make a note, in team member profile.
Yep.
That we had a serious discussion.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the nuances in a minute, but like, I'll give one right now is like during that serious discussion, generally I'll start it out with the person, say, EJ, hey, this is a serious discussion.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I don't really want to be having this convo today, but it's important that we do. It's serious.
Yep.
Something along the lines.
Yeah, you set the tone properly for that type of discussion.
Correct. And not scripted, but like as what I try and coach leaders on within this. Here I am already going off. We'll get back to it.
Sure.
So the third part would be what we call an opportunity plan or a formal write-up.
Okay.
We're big on language here, as you know, and continue to learn. And from all our talks on captions and all that stuff, like it's important to us. And I think it's important in general, like how you speak becomes a part of your culture and how you communicate with others, and your language is important. So we call it an opportunity plan, not a write-up, because a write-up has a lot of negative context to it.
Yep.
And while it is something that's being documented, it is third step in the process, and usually there's going to be an action item that comes after that opportunity plan. So it's like a last step before someone might get a demotion or let go.
Yep.
Well, that may be true. Pretty much every one of our people that have advanced here within the companies at some point have been on one of those plans.
Got it.
And they've overcome it.
Yep.
And mindset's the foundation of excellence.
That's right.
Of our core values. And yes, this is something that is being addressed formally, but we're here in your corner. We're here to help you overcome it. And it's an opportunity for you to improve in this area and improve overall, like as a person and as a professional. And when you do overcome this, you're going to be better for it.
Yeah. Over the years, Aaron, as I've had the opportunity to lead at different levels, one of the things I've found is within these conversations, people typically don't do them because they haven't been modeled them in the past, right? So they haven't had a leader that has modeled a good performance review for them. And because of that, then they're not, they don't have anything to walk off of, anything to be able to go off of. So start us off with that friendly conversation. When you say friendly, what does that look like?
We've done a lot of them, and this isn't a bad thing, but like let's just go to the content. We're working on bringing you up to speed with language, and some of that takes time. And like if it's a new area and it's the first, like you can only cover so much in training. You have your own little room here,
right?
And you're not out in the what we call the pit, with everybody all day. Now you're interactive with the team, but sometimes you're in here cranking out content and all that stuff.
Right.
So. One, it takes a long time, or a period of time for someone to get up to speed on the language.
Yep.
You've taken part in some of our leadership meetings, our trainings. You did some initial training, stuff, but like it's got to be ongoing. So when you got that going on, it takes time. And then where you're not out like around other people all day, like the curve on that can be a little bit lower. And then in your instance, it's more extreme where we're posting
to all of our clients,
to everybody,
to each of the followers that we have.
So it's in a complete spotlight in regards to like the wording that we're using and the messaging that we have. So,
it matters.
In all those situations, right? Like, hey, if we use the word like employee instead of team member, like just an example. And I think now that you understand that, right? But like we had a couple conversations on that, and it's like, well, that's got to be taught to you, and that's got to be reinforced a little bit because you probably heard the other word for the first 30. We're all used to this, and it's okay. We just choose to use different language, and there's reasons why. Well, there's no reason. It's not like you do that and it's like, all right, EJ, let's put you on a formal plan here.
Yeah.
Like this person used this word, they're not a culture fit. Like, no, we gotta teach, coach, explain why. These things are important. So friendly conversations are great ways to do those. Someone leaves trash in an area, or they just leave an area in worse shape than they found it before they got there, right? Well, I'm going to put my arm around that person, specifically if they're new or something like that, and we're just going to have a conversation, probably in private, or let's pull them off to the side. Again, doesn't have to be formal, but just, hey, I see that you left this out, I took care of it for you, or, hey, here's why this is important to us. Like it's part of our culture to leave things better than we found it.
Yeah.
That goes down to the smallest details, because if we do the little things well, it'll help us at times when we need to do the bigger things well.
Yeah.
Or the little things add up to big things.
Yep.
But those are teaching moments.
Yeah. So those friendly conversations, they can be in a one-on-one, as we've talked in the past.
Sure. But a lot of time they're on the fly.
Yeah. It's just
on the fly.
Yeah. Okay. So that friendly conversation happens. As you have that friendly conversation, I know one of the things you're really good about is, calls to action. You're really good about timelines, setting the tone for things, X, Y, Z. Do you usually have in those friendly conversations, is that where you say, and I want to see this changed by X, Y, Z, or does that transition us more into the serious conversation?
In a friendly conversation, I think I'm just going to explain it. In theory, I don't know that I'm putting timelines on stuff, even though it's a good way to communicate in a lot of instances. It's more of just explaining and teaching. Yeah, is the way I look at it, and helping people understand why we do things a certain way. Yep. And understand that, look, it's not like let's say someone leaves a piece of trash out. Yep. And then they call someone an employee instead of a team member. Well, it's not like, oh, I had a friendly conversation here, so now I'm going to put them on a serious one. You could have a lot of these going on because there's a lot of different teaching moments. Yeah. You should. That's how people get up to speed within the culture and kind of mesh into to what we're all about. Yeah. Okay, so there's that. Well, the next level conversation, okay, now you're probably getting into some timelines for improvement, or goes a little bit differently.
Okay. So as you move into the serious conversation, that's not just the like wrap your arm around someone. That's a scheduled meeting. That's in their one-on-one. How do you approach those?
Well, it depends on if I have a one-on-one with them. It depends on, there's different versions of that where it's like you could be having a conversation with a leader and they're telling you about something with their team. And it's like, well, where are you at on this? And I talk to them a lot, which I'm going to come back to. But like it could be questioning someone and on where they're at with that and helping them realize they need to move to the next step. Right.
Okay.
But let's say it's me directly. I don't know that maybe in a one-on-one, if it's fresh, but I'm going to try and do it as fresh as possible. And we may schedule a meeting on it. It may just be, again, me grabbing them, making sure we're in a private setting now compared to like a friendly conversation I'll do in front of other people.
Yeah.
And I'm choosing my words. I'm watching it. But I might like grab someone, the lunchroom. This happens a lot. Something's left out or there's crumbs or, whatever it may be. And if I'm in there with them, I'll do it then and there. And if someone walks in, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Because of the tone and how it's being handled and all that. Well, things are going to change a little bit in that serious discussion. So I at least probably pull that person in my office, the conference room, like some kind of more private setting to make sure that like they're not going to get, we're going to have other people come into that and they're going to get embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's already, it's already going to push them enough, or there's some conflict potentially there, so do it in the right setting.
Yeah. Okay, so the key components of that serious conversation for you are what?
That you reference it's a serious conversation.
Okay.
That they understand that it's serious.
Yep.
And you've moved away from just like kind of like hey, this is how we do stuff. You probably reference that we've had some conversations on this, and like I need you to understand now this like is just like because we're repeating this conversation again or multiple times, it's now time for me to explain to you that this is serious, that you grasp onto this sooner.
Yeah.
So if we role play it, just be like that, like, look, we've had this conversation a few times. I believe like we can get there on this, but I need you to understand, like I need you to pick this up quicker. This is becoming serious.
Yeah.
Here's why it's important to reiterate that, but we've talked about this a few times. I need you to understand that like this is something that we do need to improve, and then I might get a commitment from them that they're gonna work on it. Whether I put a timeline to that or not, so be it. It just depends on the situation, but I probably will.
Okay, so I've heard a couple of things. One, I've heard, hey, you're going to start off by saying it's a serious conversation, or some aspect of this is now a formal conversation. Number two. No?
Yeah. I mean, it's the start of something formal, and still trying to do it with it's a more serious combo. The tone might be a little bit different, or the conversation might be a little bit different. But the goal and the nuance within this is to still do it, most of the time, probably with an empathetic start and thought process to it. Like you're still coming from a place of caring. It's just getting a little more. You're not grasping this. You keep touching the stove, and you're gonna get burned.
Yep.
Or you have got burned, and I gotta approach this from a different angle because it's not clicking with you yet.
Yeah. Okay. And another thing I heard you say is you try and reference that friendly conversation. I like that, so that it's not just this like, hey, this is in the dark. And I'm sure that's super important. And you've learned over the years leading that as you have to progress that conversation, that being able to show those steps shows that care and compassion for the person, as well as being concise that, hey, now we're moving into this. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and again, it doesn't have to be overly formal at this point, but tell them like, look, if this continues, like we're heading towards something where we gotta create an action plan to fix this.
Yep.
Like I want to just fix it right here and now. Like I don't. It's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, but my goal is for you to improve in this. So this is an area that we need improvement on. I need you to understand how this is impacting others. I'll tie it to a core value. Whether it's do the right thing, or being people-driven, service-focused, or, leading by example, or, dominating their day, not letting it dominate, like whatever it is, right? I'm probably going to tie it back to a core value as well. So,
are you in step number 2, right? The more serious conversation. Do you find that the majority of those are dialogues, Aaron, or are you just kind of making statements at that point? How has that worked for you?
I think you want to listen to an extent, but before, like in those instances, you need to get your point across, and then I would recommend listening. Maybe there's other points of view on that.
Yeah.
Or you're going to ask, you may ask some questions. They need to be the right questions, but questions, and then that creates some dialogue, and then you're tying back those answers into how that's like offline within the core values, and then why this is so serious that they get it back on track. So
yeah,
it's hard. We're doing this in like kind of theory, scenario. But, I think anytime you have the chance to ask good questions that get people talking and thinking for themselves, that's a good thing, rather than just like talking at someone.
Yeah.
But with some of this, like you go either way depending on the instance.
Okay.
I think anytime you can lean towards asking good questions, but sometimes you just need to address the issue. You don't want to ask questions and then not get to the actual issue that you have to address.
Yeah.
So
you got to drive it.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I think it will to everybody listening too. There's then that third, which I think is probably the right word for formal discussion.
Yeah,
or opportunity.
I like to, I'm not huge on being like overly formal, but there's a time and place to document stuff, to communicate clearly. And this is just another, like, hey, like the conversations that we've had so far have been, we've had serious discussions. I have to take a different approach on trying to get through to you.
Yeah.
What we're doing isn't working. And because I care about you and I believe in you, now I won't say that, like if I'm thinking that I may or may not say that.
Okay.
Because I don't believe it's a good idea. Like if I'm like, oh man, I think this is not going the right direction, I will approach that conversation a little bit different.
Got it.
I will kind of give it like, hey, like this isn't clicking. Like, are you sure this is, you feel like this is for you? Because if it's not, it's okay. It's not for everybody.
Right.
That's different than me telling you that I believe in, like that's not just my only go-to. And I say that, like, I better mean that. But in a lot of these instances, that's a part of it, because I do probably believe in the person and see the potential in them. Are there ever instances where it's going, a different direction? Sure. Like, you can have, but a lot of times it's figured out at that point. We just figure out that, like, it's, hey, you know what, this isn't really clicking, and let's figure out an amicable way to move forward and plan around like what next steps are.
Gotcha.
Do it in a way that's not demeaning to the person or delays the inevitable. But again, like if they're telling you they're all in, well, let's give the person an opportunity to stick to their words, with their actions.
Yeah.
Like, so because I can be wrong on that too. My thoughts on that could be off and have been before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all in if we're going to go through that stuff. And if someone's not doing anything completely detrimental, we'll let that play out.
Yeah. So as part of that opportunity conversation, what are the moments within that? Is that a written and sign-off type document? Is that letting people know that this is going to be documented at this point? What is all composed in that?
A written and signed-off document with a blueprint on how to improve.
Okay.
So here's the situation. Here's the consequences of the choices that have been made by you in this instance. And here's the blueprint on what we need to do to improve and get back on the right track.
Okay.
Or, get through this. Because I don't want, the goal is not to have someone walking on eggshells forever.
Yeah.
It's to address the situation, fix it, move forward, because we're all human and make mistakes, and we all got to mature, and we all learn in different ways. Well, some of us need to experience some pain to learn. I know I have had to in instances. I highly prefer not to,
likewise.
Anymore. I don't think people should necessarily wear that as a badge of honor. I think you should be proud of what you've been able to overcome and learn from your mistakes. But that, also if you can get better at like learning quicker, being less stubborn, I guess, in a way that's like, man, I can learn quicker.
Yeah.
Or I don't have to go through this immense amount of pain to learn my lesson. I think that's optimal. I think that shows hopefully, I think that maybe that's maturity, a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and again, as leaders, like whatever we can do to speed up someone's learning curve of that compared to what ours was, well, that's just one way that we can provide, leadership and serve others.
Yeah. You started off the episode by sharing with everybody that there is historically in our organizations, the organizations that you lead, the people who are top producers, who are in leadership positions, have been through this sequence. Why do you think that really is?
Oh, there's multiple reasons. One is just, because we hire, at an entry level and people are organically growing. A lot of times it's part of that maturity process, and sometimes they might get out ahead of their skis and they get elevated at a faster rate than they're actually like maturing as a professional or person.
Got it.
Or, they have influences outside of work. There's all kinds of things, right? But I think, like, to sum it up in a nutshell, it's because there's pros and cons to organically growing people within an organization, and that's part of our growth. No different than like I don't have teenage kids yet, but I know that a lot of people, like, as their kids are, growing up, like, there's periods of time where like there's things to work on.
Yeah.
Right. And you, if you're, working to be a good parent, you're doing what you can. It's not all within your control, but you're doing what you can to work through that with them. But like from that side, it's like that's just part of being a teenager. And so,
yeah.
Well, it's not really that much different in regards to being like, okay, well, you're maturing and growing as a professional. There's like, each time you get promoted, things change and you're getting stretched in some capacity. You're probably going to hit a wall or multiple walls where you need to do some course correction. So just naturally within that, like those things can happen. And then the more you get elevated, the more of a spotlight you have on you. So if you're not keeping up with that, the more detrimental some of these things can be. And most of them are fixable, but it doesn't mean that they don't need to be addressed.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers.
Yeah, it does. What do you think are some of the biggest objections for people, the reason that they don't do this? That they don't walk people through it?
Here's where this gets hung up. People are pretty good at having, this my experience, at least with clients that we talk to about this, and then internally, with leaders specifically. Another dynamic of leaders that are kind of promoted from within, well, you have the dynamic of like peers. A lot of people are friends.
Yeah, those are my friends.
And then you have someone that gets elevated, and they have to work through that. Now, we have a lot of good training experiences. There's a lot of people that can be mentors, in that area to others, but that's a dynamic and like a evolvement process. And okay, how do I navigate that? Because that is it's a transition.
Yeah.
So, but what happens is people will have, they don't have issues having the friendly conversation. And then they kind of sit there. And next thing you know, they need to, like, they're coming, whether it's me, like, oh, we got to let this person go. Like, well, okay. Have you had a serious discussion?
Right.
Well, is it no, okay. Have you put them, are they on an opportunity plan? No, and they shouldn't be if they, like, outside of, there's always exceptions to rules.
Yeah.
But what happens is the exception becomes move into serious discussion and moving into the opportunity plan, and they sit here, and then you have a situation where, okay, now I'm just jumping to an opportunity plan, or now I'm just going to let someone go. And the person feels completely blindsided. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I didn't know this was that serious. Well, there's an inclination that you didn't do it the right way.
Yeah.
Because
it's a great indicator.
That's one of the reasons why we train them to mention in that serious discussion that, hey, this is serious. And then document it. So if you need to, you can go back, because you're going to reference, like in my progression, I'm referencing the prior conversations. And so this is a part of that. A lot of the goal of that is to work through stuff with someone in a way that's like, we don't want them to be surprised. And we want them to know that, like, we basically want a perfect example of like working through this on where it doesn't work out, but we work to an amicable exit with somebody, would be that, you know, they come to an understanding that this isn't a fit for them, and then we all figure out a solution that's optimal for them, and exit and treats them well in that. You know, where that really gets disrupted is when you're over here in these friendly conversations, and the next thing you got someone in a room and you're letting them go.
Yeah.
That is a failure of leadership.
Yep.
And so, you know, I like to say, again, you don't have to run everyone into an opportunity plan, but I would prefer, because it's all tied to improvement, and our whole purpose as a company is to help people grow.
Yep.
Well, growth is uncomfortable. So if I need to move someone to a serious conversation or put them on a plan, I'm going to do so in an empathetic way. But you can get them to a plan like that, and like, yes, you could have a demotion or something in there, but you could run them towards that, and you don't have to necessarily demote them at that time.
Right.
You could
you could delay that until
I can see you put in the effort, appreciate that. Like, or you can even note, hey, we got this written up this way. We need to see progress.
Yeah.
We need to see effort, or these things, you know, improve. We're going to work with you. We're not going to pull the rug, but it's important that this is how you're going to improve on this. I know it doesn't feel good right now, and it's not fun for me either. But there has to be consequences to choices, or, you know, a lack of performance, or, you know, whatever it may be. We can't sweep things under the rug or not address them, because the issue is going to get worse, and that's not going to help you long term.
Yeah.
So it's all coming from a place of helping them out.
Yep.
And, you know, we want to try and do that in an apathetic, calm way. You know, like, the better you do this, the less likely it needs to get heated or anything. Doesn't mean you don't need to be direct, but you don't have to be heated. You know, for sure. Like, in most instances, there may be some instances where that happens, but it should, again, be like out of 10 times that should be once. Out of 100 times, it should happen, you know, less than a handful. What should be happening is, you know, I'm not going to pull this whole quadrant right now, but I'm looking for loving and firm consequences. So we have a situation, and we can be apathetic, and we can be coming from a place of care, but we're not weak there's loving and weak consequences.
Right.
And there's loving and firm consequences. And in this, again, we won't pull out the whole quadrant, but I want to be up in this left corner where I want to be loving and empathetic of the situation, and doing this for the right reasons.
Yeah.
But firm in what needs to happen, you know, especially at that time.
Yeah. I had a leader that I worked with for some time, kind of a co-leader, that every time they had that opportunity plan, or, you know, performance improvement plan, they would almost dangle it out. Like, they would have it ready, and they would be like, hey, if you don't do these things, this is where you're going. And it never worked out well. Yeah. So I love hearing you say, like, no, listen, this is the roadmap for you to get better. This is the hope. This is what we're going after, at least the majority of the time. Like, I think that's great leadership. So
a lot of times too, and you got to actually be through it on the other side. But like, again, we've had so many of these situations with our people that have advanced within the company. I mean, I can't think of one that's advanced director level and above that hasn't had one of these plans at some point. At least that's organically moved up within the company.
Yep.
And it's for the reasons we discussed. But as I'm sitting there with this person now, sometimes, like if I'm in the room, their leader might be in their room, and I might reference how their leader worked through one of those. And you got to, again, you have to be through it. Like you don't want to be bringing one up that's fresh and still kind of the jury's out or there's work to be done. But those become positive stories within the culture because they're true.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's not a death sentence.
Yep.
This is an opportunity to improve, but it's your choice and your mindset that's going to make it go that way.
Yeah.
And there's track record after track record after track record of that being our intent and the action that we want to come out of it, but it's ultimately your choice.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think this is a great, launching point for people. Certainly there's some resources that we're going to drop down in the show notes here that people can look at, read. Maybe we'll throw the quadrants in there. Maybe, we'll drop a couple of the books that we've talked about over the time, in there for people to look at. But, for those of you who are listening, performance management certainly excels and accelerates, I'll even say, the success. It has certainly sparked success here at Spark Companies. And Aaron, I've seen you do this really well. For those of you who are out there, what's worked really well for you with performance management? Is there something that you've followed? We'd love to know down in the comments. We want to be consistent learners as well. Certainly, we've rooted in some of the practices that we have here that we've found well, but we're always learning. And we hope today, as you've listened, that this also helps you to have in your head some different ways that you can approach performance management and how to lead your people better. Aaron, thanks so much for just sharing the wisdom again today, and I appreciate it. You got one more?
Yeah, just one thing. I probably should have said this. Like, I like to give credit where it's due.
Yeah.
So we definitely we've been working on this in this format for 7-8 years.
Yeah.
And now to the point where we're starting to consult, like we've consulted with other people on it and stuff like that. But I always like to give credit where it's due. So although we've changed some of our language and put our own approach into this, especially once you go to that opportunity plan, like that's our spin and our own custom thing on this.
Yep.
But where we got the initial thought process to this is actually from some of the Jacko Willnick books. So I believe, I don't want to misspeak, but it's in Dichotomy of Leadership. There's a chapter dedicated to this. Great book, one of my top 10 favorites.
Yep.
Great person to follow. And that's where, even though it's evolved for us, like that initially, came from. So I always like to give credit where it's due. Like
by all means.
It's not like we came up, but
it's
like people get on and like almost everybody has heard something, even the best people in, the influencer world.
Yeah, management,
performance coaching or what, they've read Good to Great. They've like there's just stuff that's put their own spin on it. So we have put our own spin on this, but I give them a lot of credit. For getting our minds thinking that way.
That's awesome. Well, we hope all you guys have a great day, and make sure you like, subscribe, you give us a 5-star rating down there, and share this episode with somebody who you think can also have a opportunity to spark more success. Have an awesome day.